Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. It's been a little while since I posted any videos and I have to apologise for not posting anything for the past couple of weeks or streaming or anything. But to put it simply, since coming back from Spain to attend FFTCG's fan festival, I actually got really sick, like really sick, in and out of hospital. You know, I won't go into too much detail, but doctors were thinking it was much worse than it ended up being. But I am on the mend. I can't say I'm fully recovered as of yet, but I didn't want to leave you guys hanging for too long. So I thought I'd come back with a bit of a bang this time around and give you guys a video that's going to rank all of the protagonists from Final Fantasy Opera Omnia's EX weapons in a way that should help out should we get a certain EX shop come around over the next few weeks, possibly within the next month or so. So if you guys want to find out where all of the different protagonists, so your Clouds, your Warrior of Lights, your Noctis, your Sedans, your Sessiles, all of your favourites, all of the guys that you want to know, which ones you would pick in a vacuum, so if we get the EX shop, which ones I'd recommend from that. And even if we don't get anything like that, then it's going to be a fun little collection of ranking where the protagonist EXs are and their future to come. So if you like that idea, then stay tuned and keep on watching. As always, everybody, don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, including my Facebook, Twitter, Discord. My Discord community is absolutely wonderful, and I'm really proud to have made what I have with that, so I definitely encourage you to check that out. And my Twitch schedule as well, which I shall leave on the right-hand side here. I'm not quite back up to a point where I'm back up to normal yet, but I'm working on it, so I will get back to normal as soon as I can for you guys. Don't forget to check out DissidiaDB.com for all of your Opera Omnia needs, because it's my first place to go when it comes to anything like this. So definitely go and check that out. And of course, don't forget to look at everyone else and all the other content creators there are out there for Opera Omnia, as we all appreciate the views, the clicks, the likes, everything as much as I do. Now before we get started on the list itself, and we're going to be starting from the bottom all the way up to the top, do not take everything I say here as complete gospel. This has been as a guideline, as a recommendation for people who say a banner comes around and they want to pull on it, and they don't because despite the fact that it's their favourite, I've said not to. Don't do that. If it's a favourite character of yours, there are actually very few outwardly bad characters in Opera Omnia. So honestly, if your favourite takes precedence before anything I've recommended, then definitely go for that first. So as I say, starting at the bottom of the list, and this absolutely depresses me to put him here because he's from my favourite game in the entire series, we're going to be starting with Sedan. Now Sedan is not a bad character, none of the characters in this list are, but he's probably the character I would recommend the least because he's not amazing at this point in time. Even when he got his EX released, he wasn't incredible. He's had his rework now, so he's about as good as he's going to get for a long period of time, and he still to this day doesn't have an EX Plus when it comes to the JP side of things. So it's going to be, by the time he's relevant again, there'll be a banner that's more useful to you to pull on him for, because honestly at this point in time you're not going to use him over characters that already currently exist. So Warrior of Light, Noctis, even characters like Sync, characters like that, he's not going to overtake any of those. When EX Plus era starts to come around and Chaos era, he's not Chaos viable in any way, shape or form. All he really does is launch things occasionally. His recast rate isn't as good as it could be. There are other characters that do his job that much better. If I were to pick a character that I was least likely to recommend, unfortunately it would be Sedan. Next on my list at number 15 out of 16, unfortunately, is going to be Vaughn. Now again, Vaughn, not a terrible character. He does get a slight rework down the line where his last couple of moves on his list, so when he uses his Red Spiral or White Whirl, like when he gets to the last couple of uses of them, they do an extra amount of damage and they grant him a buff that raises attack and bravery further. But he kind of doesn't really do a lot other than single target damage, and Brave HP was like his thing back at the beginning of the game, and now practically everybody does Brave HP attacks, and some more like frequently than others. So he got his double Brave HP attacks when he used White Owl or anything like that, some of his quickenings. But now you've got characters like Noctis that do that anyway, who can do that off of his HP attack plus. And one of Vaughn's biggest problems has always been his longevity, so when it comes to chaos and things like that, he's going to run out of skills very quickly comparatively to other characters. He does have an EX+, which is, it's not bad. You know, it makes so that Pyroclasm has more Brave Overflow. He gets his Soaring to Freedom, which is the buff I mentioned earlier that raises his max Brave and attack more, like at the beginning of the fight and when he uses Pyroclasm, so he's pretty much always going to have it active. And he gets an HP +++, which does extend his longevity by quite a large margin, but basically, I'm at a point where I'm trying to... It was actually very difficult to make this list because I don't, like I said, I don't think any character on this list is outright bad. But Vaughn just does things that everyone else already does. He doesn't bring anything major to the table. He doesn't bring party auras. He doesn't bring major buffs to himself even. He just has his one new buff that he gets. He's just raw damage, and he runs out of steam much quicker than a lot of characters on this list, which is why I've put him as low down as I have. Next on my list is going to be Dark Knight Sessile, which actually I would have put him right at the bottom of the list, but he actually gets a rework after he gets his level 70 awakening, which is actually quite nice. And and I'll look at that in a moment. But the main thing I want to look at is something that you really cannot ignore when it comes to any EX ability. Is Dark Cannon recovers the uses of his other skills. Now this, by itself, makes it worth looking at, and as far as I'm aware, Dark Knight Sessile doesn't actually have an EX Plus yet, so we don't know where it could go from here. Although again, the same thing that can be said for Sedan can be said here, where by the time he does get something that big of a buff, then it will be likely that there'll be a banner that will know whether it's worth pulling for him at that point or not, and he'll probably come with other characters, as older characters with reworks tend to come with new characters as well at this point in JP. So there is that to be looking at, but the fact that Dark Cannon recovers uses of Darkness and Valiant Blow is something to look at, and the fact that his rework isn't that far away for his level 70, and he does get some pretty nice toys, if only for a little while. So I probably still wouldn't pick him, but if you're a massive Sessile fan, then he's at least worth looking at. Now my next pick on my list, I'm sure, is going to land me in some hot water with some big fans out there, but honestly, Terra is not one that I would realistically recommend either. Primarily because up until she gets her EX Plus, she's obviously only just had her level 70 awakening. As a matter of fact, as of the making of this video, she has a banner that is live right now. So if you happen to pull her kit from that, she's not a bad character. However, until her EX Plus comes around, the EX attack itself is awful. It does pretty much nothing. It's just a Brave HP attack that will give her a max Bravery buff. Which, if you've got support characters in your party, she should be getting those brave buffs anyway. However, she does improve significantly, or at least her EX skill improves significantly during Gal's banner, which is going to be quite a way away, where she gets much bigger Brave Overflow on her attack, which she hasn't got any at the minute. Right Blade does splash damage. She gets Brave Attack and HP Attack ++, which grants her more stacks of her Magicite, which is really nice. She gets a framed buff called Esper Blood, which raises all of her relevant stats, basically. And then you get Riot Blade a lot more damage at max stacks. She gets a dual cast instead of HP Attack ++, which does basically Riot Blade, but again and more, and does a lot more damage. The only problem with Terra at this point is by the time that this has come around, there's a lot of characters that do a lot of damage. So Terra, while being pretty good, she is at no point necessary from this point onwards. There was a time when, like 35 CP era, when she first got her first rework, Terra was really powerful. She doesn't ever hit that same level of limelight again, and it's sad because she isn't a bad character. She just isn't, because of the amount of time it takes for her EX skill to get really strong. If you wanted to, you could always pull for Terra then, on Gal's banner, because Gal's actually pretty interesting and solid and a counter monkey. One of the things that I'm trying to bear in mind when it comes to these characters and why some of them are recommended less than others is because of their timing on their releases of their banners. Like, if you're pulling for a different character and this character happens to be on the same banner, then you're less inclined to want to choose it if a selection is given for an EX shop, for example, because you might want to pull for it and not get a dupe later. So as it stands, I don't think very highly of Terra's EX. I think it gets significantly better during her EX Plus stage, but it's going to be a long while before we see that, and by the time it does, there are other characters that just do her job better. Another character that's low down on my list at number 12 is going to be Tidus. Now, I actually really like Tidus. Like, I got his EX the first time it came around. I've used him like pretty heavily at that point. I used him quite a bit when his rework came around. But the biggest problem with Tidus is that he's really dull. And a bit awkward to get off the ground, to be honest, because he needs to have his winning spirit buff, which he gets off of using quick hit, which is not an HP attack, before he can really do anything. His getting his HP attack plus is nice. He has low delay. He's certainly not a bad character. And Energy Rain being a decently fast recast rate, 100% damage across the board ability is nice. It's just there are other characters that are just kind of better, most of which are within this list. Although his EX plus, again, doesn't really inflate Energy Rain all that much. It gives him some max overflow or brave overflow on it, and it means his HP attack plus has overflow on it, which is nice. And it means that he gets winning spirit at the start of a fight, and he gets it every time he uses Energy Rain, so he'll be able to keep that up more often, far more often than he currently can. And he kind of needs that to be viable. He gets his EX plus relatively early from what I remember in JP, so there is that to bear in mind. But I just, again, like the other characters that have been lower down on the list so far, I just think that there are much better options than Tidus. In terms of debuffing characters, you have characters like Pain now. In terms of faster characters, you've got all manner of characters. You've got Noctis, who will do a butt ton of damage and do a much better job. You've got loads of characters that do buffs to Tidus if you wanted to use him. So he's a nice character to have, but at no point is he ever necessary. And in terms of chaos viability, there are characters I would much rather have than him. Next on the list is going to be Squall at number 11. Now, Squall is a nice character to have, much like Tidus. He's not terrible in any way. He kind of he's very single-minded. He does damage, much like Terra, he just does damage. That's all he does. Vaughn, very similar kind of thing. But where even Terra and Vaughn have slight debuffs on their attacks, Squall doesn't really have that. He just does a lot of damage, but what he is really useful for is farming. Like for clearing trash waves, things like that. Having the extra stats on Sheer Trigger is really, really helpful. And his EX Plus is useful, and it's one of the earlier ones to get hold of, and that's always nice. However, when you look at it, before I come with a stipulation with the problem with it, he actually has quite a lot out of it. He gets a max overflow, a much bigger overflow on Assault Trigger, because he currently doesn't have any, which is a big hindrance to any damage dealer right now. He can extend the duration of his current buffs, which is nice. His Lionheart buff gets bigger. So it says Lionheart 3 instead of Lionheart 2 here. What that means is that his attack and initial bravery will go up further than they would normally. And he gets Lionheart to begin with, which is great. But the final limit break on the EX Plus, he splits Assault Trigger into 2 attacks. So 6 hit Brave HP, and then and then the regular 8 hits. So he does 14 hits and 2 HP attacks in the middle, and it's got more Brave Overflow. It actually hits really hard. Currently, Assault Trigger is actually the worst attack he has. The main reason that I wouldn't go for Squall is because of the banner that he next turns up on. Now, I actually already have Squall, so this is a problem for me, and it's a risk that I'm going to have to take, and I don't want to recommend Squall to people for the same reason. His EX comes back on Ultimecia's banner. Now, Ultimecia is a character that a very large portion of the player base is going to be pulling for. She's extraordinarily powerful, and she's half the reason that characters like Terra and mages that I would put on this list, I'm just not going to. Well, I would put lower on this list because she just blows them out of the water. She's that powerful. She's still viable in JB even now. And Squall comes back with her. So do you really want to run the risk of getting a dupe Squall while you're pulling for her? If you're not bothered about that, then he's an option you could pick for the EX shop if it comes around. But if not, I would steer well clear of it. Next on my list is Barz. So we're coming to number 10 now, and so we've started to come away from the lower end of the bracket and go to the kind of the middle section. Barz is actually a pretty solid pick. He actually gets a second rework later down the line, which basically just streamlines all of his skills. So he always gets an HP attack off of Double Hand, his party support capabilities are that much stronger, and he obviously gets an EX+. Barz has kind of had his day in the sun as far as the Cosmos era goes already. Inuki was a decent attack because it had a fast recast rate, which meant it could go off every other turn. It batteried the party. You got ridiculous amounts of speed out of it. It was just a really good attack to have. But now we have characters like Ramza, who also have a very fast recast rate on their attack. And you get more out of it because you get the triple break debuff or Innovate. You get Ramza's grand support capabilities and his abilities to just not take up turns, which is wonderful. And again, because of my being sick, I apologise for not having made should you pull videos for Ramza, Terra, Noctis, things like that recently, but I'm fairly sure that everyone who would want to have pulled for those will have done so by now. But if you guys want to hear more about those characters, then do leave a comment in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. But then Greatsword also gets an EX Plus down the line, which is actually very nice. It makes it so that it has splash damage, which is never something to sniff at. He gets a framed buff off of using it called Wanderer, which raises his attack, which is fine, but it also raises the Brave Overflow limit of your party, which I think is actually very powerful. He also gets a HP attack plus, which is something he very desperately needs, so that he can just not have to use skills every time, and it actually turns it into a Brave HP attack that raises party bravery after the HP damage has been dealt. So it's actually a very nice HP attack plus to begin with. Now Barz I do think is a strong pick. If you had a lot of the characters that are above this list already, then I wouldn't sniff at Barz. He's a character that I considered picking. But again, he has the same problem that some of the other characters have on this list, so Squall and Terra and things like that, that by the time they become relevant again, you often find that other characters are going to come to the forefront, and that newer characters that have been released will be more powerful. There are certain characters that last a lot longer at this point in the game than others, some of which will be at the top of this list. And there are characters that you will just use over Barz, and while he's really good and a solid pick, if you've got a lot of the characters that are above him on this list, there are other characters you could use over him, which is why he's not as high as he could be. Now the next two characters on this list I put pretty much neck and neck, and the reason for that is that I think that both of them are really nice characters to have, but their banners tend to wean you away from them. Although in the case of Paladin Sessile, before I actually talk about his kit, I would recommend picking Paladin Sessile. He's a character that I've used a great deal in a lot of Cosmos content, and some of it, the Abyss, I used him a ton in that. I actually found him to be very pleasing, and a lot more than a lot of other reviewers did. But the main reason that I would possibly pick him is if you already have Vaughn. Because the only other returning time that you'll get Paladin Sessile's EX weapon come around is during Vaughn's Lost Chapter. And so, Paladin Sessile's EX Plus is actually very potent. He gets quite a lot out of that, which I shall show you in a moment. But if you already have Vaughn, then you're not going to want to pull on Vaughn's banner again to try to get Paladin Sessile. So if you have him, then Paladin Sessile is a much more appealing pick, because then when that banner comes around, you already have both of the characters on it. Both of them go up really, really far, and therefore you're going to go, well, actually it's nice that I have both of these already. Conversely, if you don't have Vaughn, I would advise against picking Paladin Sessile for the same reason. When his Lost Chapter comes around, Vaughn is an extraordinary character again when he gets his EX+, and Paladin Sessile's not one to sniff at either. So it's a much nicer prospect to pull on a banner where you could go, well, I'm not going to get a dupe either way, this is a much nicer pick for me. Then you go, I want Vaughn, but I might get Paladin Sessile and I don't want to get a dupe. But Paladin Sessile is just, as I say, he's a nice character to have, certainly for clearing a lot of content. He's more defensively based than a lot of characters, and certainly not as well as one of the characters in the higher tier of this list. But his EX Plus, when he does get it to come around when Vaughn's Lost Chapter comes around, his Holy Resist down is not to be underestimated, by the way. Imperil becomes very important later on in the game, as I will discuss with another character on this list fairly shortly. But he gets all of his buffs at the beginning of the quest, so that's really nice. You'll get Brilliant Sword, Divine Shield, so he has his HP attack plus, his Luminous Blast, and his Brave attack plus straight off the bat, which is really nice. And then Paladin Force gets to hit twice, and he starts the game. It starts the round with it, which is really great. He's one of the first characters with an Imperil that can do that and just go, yeah, that's it, you're imperiled now. He also has another framed buff that comes off of it, which raises max bravery and attack, which is the bit that he really needed, because none of his stuff boosted that up to begin with. He'll get that straight after using Paladin Force, which he's going to get straight away because he starts with his EX gauge maxed out, which is awesome. He also gets just more stats and his offenses, which is where he needs them to go. So honestly, I quite like Paladin Sessile as a pick if you already have Vaughn. If you don't, I would steer clear of him. Now Furion has to go on this list as one of the most underrated characters in Opera Omnia. Since he got his rework, since he got his EX weapon, he's actually been extremely potent for quite some time. The only reason that he's lower on the list than he could be is because, again, of another banner that he comes back on. And this is something that speaks to me more than anybody. But the returning time for Furion will be with Emperor. Now, Emperor, like Ultimisia, is going to be a character that a large portion of the player base is going to pull for because he's an extraordinarily powerful character. And for the same reason as I stated with Squall and Sessile and a lot of other characters, I would steer clear of picking a character based on the fact that we could get them as a dupe later. On a banner you know you're going to pull on. If you have no intention of pulling on Emperor's banner, then Furion's a pretty solid pick. His sustainability is great, he has HP recovery, he does good damage, he doesn't have any like debuffs or anything like that to write home about, but he's just a solid character. He does a lot of work for what he has. He's got a lot of skill uses, and then when he gets his EX+, which he'll get when Emperor's banner comes around, he gets HP healing off of Weapon Master, he gets to extend his duration of his buffs, he gets more max bravery, more attack, he gets a frame buff that gives him more attack and bravery gen, he gets a larger amount of max brave overflow on his skills, he gets a brave attack plus plus and HP attack plus plus, and that HP attack plus plus is actually really good because it's brave overflow and it heals him. It does, in fact, so does his brave attack. He just gets a lot of sustainability in his kit. He doesn't do anything spectacular, but he's just a very all-around solid character. So I actually quite like Furion as a pick, but I won't be picking him personally because he comes back on Emperor's banner, and I would love to treat Furion as someone I got along the way to getting Emperor. I'd be like, yeah, do you know what? That's a nice extra to have. I'm happy to have that. Rather than me going, I'm less inclined to pull on this banner now because I already have one of the EXs on it, and I might pull a dupe. That being said, Furion's a solid pick. Now, I was very close to thinking that if an EX shop came around tomorrow, that this would be the character that I'd actually pick first, were it not, yet again, for the banner that he comes back on. But Onion Knight, while nothing to write home about now, is probably one of the best future investment picks you can possibly make. His EX Plus is extraordinary, and he skyrockets himself from one of the lesser, not many people are too fussed about his EX that he has now. He's a serviceable EX character now. He's not great, but his EX Plus absolutely skyrockets him. Slightly fast recast rate, which means that obviously every 2 to 3 turns you're going to get it, which is great. But the evolved version of it, Onion Knight starts to usher in the Imperil kind of meta. Imperiling becomes really relevant over the course of time. And it's why another character, or the next character on this list, is actually going to be on that banner, or like on that sort of list, as high on the list as she is. But Onion Knight will like grant Ice Resist down and Ice Enchant to self in one move, which is great. His Meteorite becomes 100% HP AoE damage, which is fantastic. He starts the quest with Ice Enchant straight away and more max bravery overflow limit for the party. So while I was speaking about this with Barz, Onion Knight also gets this, and it does it a lot stronger if you're willing to wait for him. He also doesn't consume his first ability use, which is always nice. He gets 180% max brave overflow when using Blade Torrent, which is pretty strong. And then while you've got Ninja or Sage active, he gets 2 different HP attack pluses, one of which does a lot more damage to a single target, one of which does damage to AoE. So it does single AoE, it does an AoE brave attack, and then a single target HP attack, and then 20% splash damage to the other opposing party members, which is really nice. And honestly, like I said, Onion Knight goes from 0 to hero faster than you can snap your fingers after he gets his EX+. My issue with him is that he comes on Yuri's banner, and Yuri is a character that a lot of people, I'm not sure how many people are excited for Yuri, but I know I am, and he's a character that I really want the EX Plus for. So again, I'm in that sticky, nasty situation where don't know whether it's worth pulling on Onion Knight now, or like trying to get Onion Knight early, or to wait for Yuri's banner to come around, and then if I get Onion Knight on the way to Yuri, then I'll be really happy about it. But if you have no interest in Yuri, Onion Knight's probably one of the more solid picks that you can make if you already have the very top tier of the characters that will hopefully be available if we get an EX shop soon. Now we're starting to get to the higher tiers of the picks that I would make, and this is probably one that I think will surprise people a lot, but it's actually the character I'm most likely to pick myself. It is going to be Shantotto at number 6. Now Shantotto is a lot better than she used to be right now. She's certainly not magnificent right now, but she's certainly good enough. She does a lot of decent damage. She has imperils, which is useful, but she doesn't come back with any one major, as far as I can tell, for the foreseeable future when she gets her EX Plus come around, and it's not a banner that I would go out of my way to pull on. When she gets her EX Plus, however, she gets a lot of additions to her kit, as you can see by the massive amounts of text that are written here. Now, Divine Malison already imperils 4 different elements. Once she gets her EX Plus, she also imperils the other 4. So she imperils everything with the Divine Malison debuff. And that is a framed debuff, so that will stack with other sources of imperil. So that's something worth noting. She gets Rage Divine Malison, so she can then get an AoE version of the attack, which obviously is great at the best of times. And she actually, as we well know from her level 70 Awakening, it's much easier to keep her in Rage than it ever used to be before. She also starts the quests with her EX gauge maxed out, so if you're against something that you know is going to end up with wanting to be imperiled for elemental resistance, then Shantotto's going to be your go-to gal. She also gets Accursed Gaze, which is the thing that keeps her rage going, and she gets a second framed debuff called Peerless Power, which raises her attack and her Brave Overflow limit, which obviously more attack is great. She starts with Peerless Power, and she also gets more of it when she uses her EX, and because her EX is a slightly fast recast rate as well, you're practically never going to run out of these skills, or of these buffs. It's just a very nice thing to have. And then she gets Brave Attack Plus Plus and HP Attack Plus Plus, which extend her Rage mode, so that's just not going to go away anytime soon. So once she's gone in Rage, it's not going to go away. And they're both Wind Elemental, so if you can find a source of wind resistance down or anything like that, or even just relying on her own one, is really nice. Like pairing her up with a second Imperil character like Onion Knight, Paladin Sessile, characters like that, or Lightning, who I shall get to in a second, then she does really nice things. She pairs up with other characters really well, and she's one of those characters that I find extremely interesting and that you can do things with that you can't with many other characters. And then when you finally maxed out her EX Plus, it just does a lot more damage and more splash damage, which is really nice. So honestly, I think Shantotto is an underrated pick, but I think that she's one that will surprise people when it comes to the Imperil meta, because as I said, sort of midway through the Chaos era, we're going to start seeing a lot more in terms of elemental imperiling. So Onion Knight, Paladin Sessile, Lightning, characters like that, including Shantotto, they're all going to be characters that are going to come to the forefront a lot more. And so, because there's no banners that I particularly care about that have Shantotto on them, she's probably the character I'm personally most likely to pick. But that is mainly because I already have all the characters above her on this list. Now, Lightning is the last character that I will talk about before I hit the big 4. Now, I talk about the big 4 because they are the 4 that I will recommend to literally anybody, and you should only really pick anyone under those 4 if you already have all 4 of them. But Lightning is actually a solid pick. You know, she's a decent now. She's probably going to last you until sort of the end of the Cosmos era. So, you know, within the next few weeks, maybe 5 or 6 weeks, something like that. But when Chaos comes around, she does fall off. However, when she gets her EX Plus, albeit it's on a very, very competitive banner that's very, very nice to pull on, because it will also contain Hope's EX and Shadow's EX, which are both very strong. Hope in particular is very strong. Lightning, however, is not one to sniff at either when she gets her EX Plus. She, as I was speaking earlier about imperil, sort of elemental imperils, she then gets an elemental imperil of her own. Her Knight of Etro buff also thunder enchants her, bear in mind, as it already does. So I imperil me this way, I enchant myself this way, I imperil you the same way, is a surefire way to get a much, much, much bigger damage. Like, just a huge amount of damage very quickly. And obviously, pairing up with Shantato, pairing up with other lightning characters, the potential for party composition is much bigger for having that by itself. It's really nice to have. And it's self-sufficient, so you don't even have to build around it. So you get Thunder Resist down after using Army of One, which is already a very overloaded skill. It delays really heavily. It stops you using your abilities for the next turn. You get a lot out of Lightning already, and all that her EX Plus does is, blow out her kit even further. She extends her own durations of her buffs, gets more attack and bravery, all the, pretty generic but lovely things to have. She gets Knight of Etro at the beginning of the quest and her EX gauge filled to 80%, and she doesn't consume her ability use for the first turn. Because it's at 80%, chances are, after you've used an ability, she's probably going to be able to use her EX the next turn. So, bear in mind that you don't use an ability use after you've used that. You're going to get a lot of ability uses and a lot of usage out of Lightning. However, you also, once you've maxed it out, get the thing that makes Vaughn as strong as he is on Lightning. So you get to cancel break status, and the number of hits expands greatly. So instead of a 2-hit, 2-hit, 3-hit, you get 2-hit, 3-hit, 4-hit with much higher potency, so you're going to do a lot more damage out of it as well. If you're on an army of one and you break, then unbreak, and so you break them, unbreak them, and delay them 2 turns, they're not getting a turn anytime soon. She also gets HP attack ++, depending on which mode she's in, which, is just a much stronger HP attack ++. So honestly, Lightning is definitely one to look at if you already have the big 4. And yeah, I already have Lightning, but the only reason that I wouldn't pick Lightning over a lot of the other characters is because of the banner that she comes back on with her EX Plus, and she's not particularly useful until that banner comes around. But the banner she comes back on is an extremely powerful one, and Lightning is a character that comes back on like a beginner's banner. So does Squall and so does Cloud, and she's probably the weakest of the 3 at the time that you could get it, but she's still nice. She's still nice to have, but when she gets her EX Plus, she blows out. Like, she blows up big. So now we come to the big 4. Now, these 4 characters, so 4, 3, 2, 1, are the characters that I would be most likely to recommend to anyone that doesn't already have them. All the characters that I've spoken about up until this point are almost superfluous in comparison to these 4. Now, the first one of those, and I'm probably the weakest, but he's still extremely good, is Noctis. Now, Noctis has only just come around. His banner is still active at this moment in time, but it probably will be gone by the time we get an EX shop if we get one. So, Noctis does ridiculous amounts of damage at this point in time. During the rest of the Cosmos era, Noctis, alongside some of the other characters, even some of the ones on this list, will carry you through the entire thing. His damage is absolutely maddening. When Chaos comes around, he falls off hard and fast because he just doesn't last long enough to take out the amount of HP he needs to in comparison to some of the other characters that are available. He doesn't have the tech that some of the other characters that are available have. He is raw damage, but my god, does he do a lot of it. The reason that I would pick Noctis is because you are struggling to deal with content that's currently available, because he absolutely stomps all over it. But there are other characters that are also available that do similar kinds of things. Like Pain doesn't do as much damage as he does, but she's more techie than he is. But Noctis doesn't get his EX Plus for quite some time. And when he does, he's kind of already outclassed by that point. He's quite difficult to use as well. But if you can use him correctly, then he is extremely rewarding. He'll carry you through what's left of the Cosmos era. He might not be the most amazing character for Chaos, but he'll certainly be usable for a little while after that's come out. But his EX Plus gives you sort of, so Conjure Armaga does stuff, because it's actually the weakest skill he has, but it's necessary to build his Armaga stacks up and to give him some longevity, because otherwise he runs out of skills like Water. But it gets Brave Overflow. He doesn't consume an ability use on the next turn, and that is a big deal. He does some splash damage with Conjure Armaga. He starts with some Armaga, and he also gets point blank warp straight away, which is nice because it means he's going to deal a lot more damage a lot more quickly. His Conjure Armaga becomes split into multiple HP attacks, which is great because it means you're going to suffer a lot less bravery leakage. If you've got like a brave battery who's already given him loads, he'll like use all of that up and then continue hitting them. He does, he's just got a lot of damage. But that is all he does. So if you're struggling with current content, then he is a character that I would consider. Now, number 3 on my list is actually the total opposite of everything I said about Noctis, and it's Stoller. Stoller is okay right now. She's nothing special, but she gets her EX Plus relatively early in the EX Plus era when Lise comes out. And it's a massively improved version of her current EX skill. So her current EX skill reses all party members, gives them all full HP, gives them all their max bravery up to max, gives everyone a bit of max bravery up, recovers the uses of her skills, which is something I've said 100 times on this channel is absolutely invaluable and you cannot miss out on it. You cannot underestimate how powerful a character who can recover their skills is. She gets an HP attack plus, which is lovely. She has all that now, so what makes it so that she's that much better when she gets her EX plus? Well, the other thing to bear in mind when it comes to her is that Lise isn't a particularly great character when she comes out. She's not bad, but she's not a must-have character. So by getting her so if we get an EX shop, getting a Stoller from that is going to be a solid pick because it means not having to pull for her and a semi-lackluster banner. But she gets to start the game with her EX gauge maxed out. Now bear in mind it's originally a very slow charge, so being able to just cast it straight away whenever you want. Oh no, my bravery's not maxed out, better cast Pulse of Life. Oh no, I've used a couple of my skill uses, better use Pulse of Life. Bear in mind that obviously once you've already cast an EX once, the recast rate is faster after the first time you've done it, so it means she's going to get more access to it. She gets a party aura off of it, which is kind of cool. Like she gets more, like the party gets more attack and max bravery, which is the stat she realistically want. She also gets more recast rate on Pulse of Life, which is really important to her kit. She gets no action delay, no turn count after using Pulse of Life, so she instantly gets another turn straight after it. Bear in mind that Stone delays, so that's a nice little techie play. Or if there's a big attack coming your way, you can just like go Pulse of Life, Medica, whatever, or Brave Attack. Like just get off me. It's like a really good get off me button, and your party's just going to really struggle to die if you've got a Stoller in it, because you can just res everybody if you need to. You can just make it so that everyone's got full HP so that they never have to be resed in the first place, because dying lowers your score and we don't like that. But Chaos, bear in mind that there is no, like, apart from the score requirement on the actual mission itself, there's no like beat back scores, so your score is less important than it is in other missions, like EX missions and stuff. She also gets an HP attack plus, which has overflow, and she gains bravery before doing it, so similar to Warrior of Lights, which is quite nice. But she also prevents she also just doesn't die if she's over 50% max HP and somebody goes to smack her in one hit. It just doesn't work. It leaves her at 1. Then you Pulse of Life, she gets all her health back and everyone's hunky-dory. If Stoller goes from 0 to hero, much like Onion Knight, like that. She's an incredible character for Chaos sort of content. She's one of the best support characters going. Because I already have Stoller, like I actually already have all 4 of the characters I put at the top, but there's a reason that I pulled for those characters. Like I grabbed them because I knew they were going to be really strong in the future, and Stoller is absolutely one of those characters. She may not be anything right now, but if you're looking for a future investment character, you will not go wrong by picking Stoller. Number 2 on my list is going to be Cloud, and the reason for that is because during the very earliest stages of Chaos and the EX Plus era, Cloud is one of the strongest characters that you can have access to. He's a pretty damn good character now because he has his cross/pluses. He can launch whenever he wants. His recast rate on Meteor Raid is really fast, even if it's not the greatest attack right now, because it doesn't have a Brave Overflow. It does split damage. There's a lot of things that aren't fantastic about Meteor Rain. Those will change when he gets his EX Plus. Now, he doesn't have the ability to recover skill uses like, some character like a Stoller or Vaughn or anything like that. But what he does is hits very, very hard, which is what you realistically want him to do. His Meteor Rain can overflow to 180%. Actually, that's 200% once he hits the full limit break. He gets more critical damage rate off of it. He starts with Mako, which is an incredibly useful thing for him because it means his attack power is through the roof before he's even started doing anything. He gets more attack off of it, and then most importantly, Meteor Rain triggers twice every time you use it. Now bear in mind, it's a half decently charging EX attack. It's got overflow on it to be like a great overflow on it to begin with, so he's not going to waste any sort of brave batteries that have been put on him. He's still got access to Cross Slash Plus and Finishing Touch, and he's got HP Attack Plus, which is great because he just does lots of damage, but he does have techie things that he can do that no one else can. Namely, paralysis. Paralysing things, like just going Finishing Touch, charge my summon gauge super quick. Oh, like, this thing's going to do something I don't want it to do. Quickly cross slash it, now I don't have to worry about it for the next turn. That's so valuable. Like, paralysis is something that people don't talk about enough in this game because it can allow you to cheese so many bosses and like nasty content in this game. You can't underestimate it. And because he's one of the earlier EX Plus characters, he's going to do really well in the early stages of Chaos, which is the time where a lot of people are going to be struggling, because there's a lot of characters that just, unfortunately, can't keep up with it. Like, and a lot of characters that are on this list, a lot of the ones that I put lower down on the list, are characters that will not keep up with Chaos era very well at all. So, Cloud, the fact that Cloud is the poster boy of the game, or like poster boy of the franchise almost, one of them, means that he's never going to go completely ignored. He's always going to be at least somewhat usable. And the second he stops being usable, something else will get released to make him good again. Cloud is definitely one of the strongest picks you can make from this list because his damage is exponential. He does well now. He does well later. Up until the point where, like, by the time, if you haven't gotten another damage dealer by the time that Cloud isn't useful, then you're either very, very unlucky or you're just not pulling for damage dealers. Because Cloud is going to last for a fairly long while, and he does do very well for quite some time. And my number one pick, probably not surprising very many people, is Warrior of Light. Warrior of Light is an absolutely bonkers, mental, busted character that allows you to do things that you should not be allowed to do in this game, which is HP attack completely recklessly and not care, because your opponents just aren't going to do anything to you. People say that you don't need Warrior of Light's EX weapon for him to be good, and that's true. For now, Warrior of Light's EX weapon gives him things that he's... Like, people underestimate his EX weapon because it's not massively damage dealing. It doesn't battery your party when it goes off. But what it does do is it gives him a decent speed up. And that actually helps him quite a lot. And it also rounds his support kit out perfectly by having HP recovery on it. So having the shields, having the lock, like the target lock, having HP recovery, having the ability to go off multiple times is all well and good. But when his EX Plus comes around, it gets better. He gets even better. And it's like, you don't need to be better. You're one of the best characters, if not the best character in the game right now. And then you get an EX Plus really early on as well, alongside Garland, who is a character that some people might pull for, but he's certainly not a top echelon must-have character. You want Warrior of Light when that banner comes around, so why worry about it and skip the hassle entirely if we get an EX shot and just pick him? Honestly, he is my number one pick because if you don't have Warrior of Light, in my opinion, you shouldn't even think about any other character. He's so powerful up until the point where Zack gets hits EX Plus, which is months away, and even then he's not bad. He's still really useful. Like, there are people I've seen who play JP who don't have Zack EX Plus and have Warrior of Light EX Plus and still do absolutely fine. Shining Wave with EX Plus gets Brave Overflow, which it absolutely desperately needs. It gets more hits, which it absolutely desperately needs, and it just hits harder, which is the only thing Warrior of Light really needs it to do. All of his skills Brave Battery, all of his skills do something supportive. He gets healing off of Shining Wave. he gets now more damage off of Shining Wave Plus. There is literally, in my opinion, no reason not to pick Warrior of Light if you don't already have him. So, in conclusion, the 4 characters at the top are the characters that I think that you should really seriously look at. If you don't have all 4 of those characters, they're the ones that I like. Unless you have a very big favoritism for a certain character, at which point ignore everything I'm currently saying and pick your favorites. But in terms of longevity and strength, if you don't have those top 4 characters, so Noctis, Stoller, Cloud, and Warrior of Light, they are the ones that you should absolutely be looking at before anybody else on that list. So that's going to be the end of this video. I hope that it's helped you guys either formulate an opinion on the various protagonists of Final Fantasy and where their EX weapons lie for now and for the foreseeable future. I hope that we do get an EX shop. It's very likely because I believe it was actually alluded to in the last community stream, and we do actually have another one of those coming up fairly soon. So do keep an eye out for that as well, so because, you know, if there isn't one, then this was just a really lovely little list that I've just made. There is also plans to be a second EX shop, at least going by what JP has, that adds some characters to it. So like the spin-off titles, so Vincent, Ramza, Ace, Lael. There'll be characters that are added to it, but going off of just the protagonists of the mainline titles, I'm just gonna stick with those for the time being. If we do do have hints that another EX shop might be coming around, then I shall make another video then, and hopefully, you know, or you could refer back to this one, and I'll do a second one that adds to it, because for the foreseeable future, I don't see my opinions on these characters changing anytime soon. Anyways, thank you ever so much for watching. As I said, I really hope that this guys has helped you guys to formulate an opinion on the various EX weapons we have for various characters on the horizon and the characters we've already had. I do apologise that I haven't been around over the past couple of weeks. I've been very, very ill, and I'm very, very thankful. I've had some lovely messages from you guys, actually, on both Discord, and I've posted on YouTube to try and keep you guys up to date with what's going on, and I've tried really hard to at least make it so you guys don't think I've just disappeared for no reason. But I do apologise that I have been away for a couple of weeks, and I will try to get back onto as regular a schedule as I can, as soon as I can. I'm actually going to be at KupoCon in London this weekend, so if you guys happen to be at that event, then definitely come up and find me. I mean, it might be difficult to find me and not, because I will be dressed up for it, but if you know me, you'd know it was me pretty quickly. So do come up and say hello, come and say hi, come and you know, talk about Opera Omnia, talk about FFTCG, all that good stuff. But I really hope that you guys have a really good week, and hopefully I shall see you guys soon. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!